Hello and welcome to the Reptile Workshop, where we take on one project in 1 hour from start to finish. I'm Craig Hansen, also known as Bash Coder Reptiles, and tonight we've got a really cool show for you, the winner of the Extreme Media Makeover project. But first, we're going to show you some ads. Here we go. ShedTesting.com is your complete solution for ball python genetic testing. With over 30 tests available, top-notch customer support, and fast turnaround times, their service is unmatched in the reptile industry. Visit ShedTesting.com today. Okay, we're back, and behind the scenes, we've got Nikki and Kurt from Irresistible Pythons Producing. Thank you so much, guys. We couldn't do it without you. We're going to bring on our guests, which is pretty exciting. Some of your favorite mentors are going to be on tonight. Want to introduce Stephen Capps from Leviathan Snakes. How you doing, Stephen?
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me. I'm super freaking excited about this because we get to talk about snakes and marketing
at the same time, right? It's going to be great.
Yeah, I love it.
I want to just talk about your Patreon for a second, because I'm a part of your Patreon. I'm a big proponent of it. And I know a lot of this kind of stuff that you're going to do tonight is also available to your Patreon members, right?
Yep. So there's various different tiers on it, but for the most part, we love talking about snakes. We love talking about marketing and business and all of those things. So I feel like that the group chat is pretty active just about every single day. But beyond that, for our top tier in the Patreon, which I don't actually think that there's any open spots on it, but just in case it ever opens up, we'll do one-on-one calls with people who are in the top tier once a month, where we'll talk about literally whatever they want. But a lot of people do focus on marketing. And oftentimes it's as a unbiased, objective viewpoint, what do you think about our entire brand? And I know for several of the people, they've made changes that I feel that they're a lot happier with. So, but yeah, I'm super excited. And all of the money that they pay in fees goes as snake credit. But I feel a lot of people do that too.
I don't know, man. That's a pretty cool perk. And I don't know that many people do that, but, I'm really excited to be part of the Patreon. I have seen people get the advice, use the advice, and improve their presence online. And you guys are certainly the top of the top when it comes to production quality and marketing yourself. The stuff you're doing for Redline, it's great. So we're excited to have you, Mike. How's it going? This is Mike Johnson from Herp Collectors, but even more than that, now the Herp Collectors Network, right?
Yeah. What's up, man? Yeah, super excited to be here. Definitely looking forward to our conversations for the rest of the night. But yeah, you nailed it on the head, man. Herp Collectors, and then also the recently released Herp Collectors Network. And so that's very exciting. We've got two shows outside of Clutch Conversations that are now the Herp Collectors Network. So we have Double Clutch, and then we also have the Retake Rundown, which just started yesterday, hosted by Chris from Untamed and Unhinged podcast. And we definitely got some more things on the work. So certainly looking forward to all of that.
And the new Double Clutch show is awesome with Matt from Ebony and Ivory. And you guys have a new Patreon too.
Yeah. Another announcement that just really kind of rolled out. So we started our Double Clutch Patreon September 1st. And so it rolled out. We've got several different tiers, but we're focusing on a lot of snake stuff, obviously. That's going to be really fun. We've got some discounts on the various tiers for snakes. We've got payment plans. We've got some collaboration opportunities for folks within the Patreon. We're doing bi-monthly Zoom calls as well. We've got a Discord. So definitely looking forward to that community growing and moving forward over time, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Right on. I'm excited to say I joined today too. I'm at the Wonder Woman level.
Thank you so much for joining.
So I'm excited about that. Great. Well, now I get to introduce someone very important to me. This is my son, David Hansen, also known as Dave Space Laser. Dave is going to take on a crazy task tonight, and he is going to design a logo from start to finish in an hour for our friend Nate. How's it going, David?
Great. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
You would know David from a lot of national brands. I'm not going to kind of go into all his credits, but there's a lot of national brands he's done work for that you would notice his stuff. And so we're really excited to have you here, David, and working on the logo. We have gotten a little bit of direction from Nate in advance, so we cheated a little bit because we really wanted him to love the logo that we come out with in 1 hour. But I believe that's a good amount of cheating. We just did a tiny amount of cheating where we allowed Nate to see some ideas, and he told us what he liked and what he didn't like. But David is showing here right now the original sketch of his logo, and on the left is the original logo from Nate. And so we're going to ask him about that in just a little bit. All right, so it's time to invite our contest winner to the stage, Nate from the Real McCoy Exotics. How are you doing, Nate?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Happy to be here.
Doing great, man. Congratulations on winning. We had a lot of entrants. We had like 40 entrants and a lot of names you would know, a lot of people with really established companies, a lot of newbies and everything in between. And we asked some essay questions. We asked about your snakes. We asked about your breeding plans, your business plans, your history. And we really felt like yours was just right on the money, hit the sweet spot for what we wanted to be able to showcase tonight. And we're thrilled that you won. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company.
So I could start with myself. My name is Nathaniel McCoy. We created the Real McCoy Exotics back in 2011, I believe, 2012. And we originally was just a hobby. My mom is big in business, so we made it an LLC back then. It was just a hobby. We were breeding a few clutches a year, nothing too crazy. I then joined the military in 2016, so we sold everything. I got out of the military in 2021, and now we're rebooting and doing it on the professional level. It's no longer a hobby. It's now what I want to do the rest of my life.
Love it. So your goal is to go full-time.
Full-time.
Love it. Well, tell us about this original logo that you have. It's so awesome.
Thank you. So my friend that I grew up with, he is now a graphic designer. Back then he was an aspiring graphic designer, and he designed this for me. So the idea is we're the Real McCoy Exotics, but the Real McCoy is a what do you call it? A phrase that comes from back in the day from a guy named Elijah McCoy, who I'm not 100% sure, but my mom thinks that we may be related. So I decided to use his face
sweet
as the logo and then make his beard snakes.
Love it. And that dates back a long time, right?
Mm-hmm. Not 18. Early 1900s.
No, I mean your logo actually dates back.
Oh, 2012.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to let David start now and get him running on your logo, and you'll see he's going from a sketch and he'll start designing it out. David, what program are you going to be using to design in today?
I'm using Affinity Designer. It's a pretty great alternative to Adobe Illustrator. I really love everything about it, honestly.
And a lot of people are looking for alternatives to Adobe Illustrator these days.
Yeah, for real.
There's been no shortage of drama there. Okay, let me turn it over to Stephen. And Stephen, you can start asking your questions of Nate.
All right. So Nate, very first thing, and I feel like that you kind of answered this already, but right now, what would you say is your ultimate goal with your reptile business? Is this side income? Is this, you want to be your full-time income, your family's full-time income, have employees? How big do you want it to go?
So my goal right now is to retire, make this my entire income, no 9 to 5. If I need employees, I will hire employees. But as of now, I think myself and my wife manage pretty well.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, let's get it. So I tend to, because we're looking at this from like a business perspective, and we're looking at least initially trying to go for 2 full-time income levels. I want to talk about like the different segments, because this is my opinion at least, but there's lots of different people who love reptiles, and there's lots of people who buy reptiles and they buy them for different reasons. They buy them at different price points and they have different preferences. So based off of the animals that you either have right now or you're planning to have in, like, let's say 5 years or so, and how the types of customers that you like interacting with, do you have a type of customer that you're like, this is the person I want to work with? I want to work with first-time pet keepers, people who've never owned reptiles before. That's the target I want to focus on. Or are you more of like, I want to target the people who are investing big money to try to start their own breeding operations, but they're rather new, so they want to focus more on both the business and the animals, or somewhere in between?
I would say that my goal is to be where the investment animals.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm at currently. Currently, I'm working with a lot of new breeders and a lot of people who want pets. Mm-hmm. But I do plan to switch over to the investment animals. I have my own investment animals, but I'm not producing them yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And honestly, I feel like whenever we say this, just for anybody in the chat, anybody in the audience watching, it's not one. You don't have to pick only one and that's it. We're just trying to talk about, like, this is the primary one. Obviously, we're going to make pets and we can sell pets to people. But if our goal is the investment, we want to try to build a brand that targets these investment type people. So the next question that I have, if we're looking at more of the investment tier, most people who are investing large amounts of money into animals are going to be other breeders. Are you thinking that you want to target like newer breeders on the investment side, or people who have been in for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and they're buying investment animals? Because I feel like that this avenue, the strategy will change depending on which one we want to go towards.
I'm definitely leaning more towards 5, 10, 15 years in the hobby.
Okay. So not the brand new person.
No.
Okay. That's really, really good. So with this, if we're going to break up the 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to break these into kind of 3 different subcategories. At 5 years, you would be focusing on people who got in at the very beginning or right before COVID, and they'd stayed in the entire time. At 10 years, you're hitting the people who got in essentially the wave before COVID. And at like 15 years, you're like targeting people who've been in like when Bob Vu got in. Right. So completely different mindsets, completely different things. Let's go off of the COVID type people. So the people who got in during COVID have stayed in the whole time. So they went up through the super hot market. They dealt with the crash of 23. They are still in. They're grinding it out. They're not going anywhere. What do you feel like those people's pain points are?
Pain points.
And anybody else, if you guys want to chime in as well.
I'm thinking that they're hurting right now because they paid so much for their animals and they're not worth what they're producing. If that's what you mean by pain points. Yeah,
I think that's perfect. So they might be jaded on potentially buying in high again because they've already been burned by it once.
Right.
So I think that's a huge avenue that we can look at in your brand. So with that one, I feel like that if we're kind of boiling that down to emotions, there might be fear in investing big money. People who are bought in at the beginning of COVID, there might be fear in investing big money, as well as trust. Like, not necessarily trust with the breeder, thinking that you might scam them, but everybody wants to be trustworthy and whatnot. But I mean, trust in terms of the entire system. So, but again, these are people who've stayed in that we're going to be targeting.
Right.
So with this, I want to talk a little bit about visual elements, but I want to talk a ton since David is working on the logo right now. So there's a couple different directions. I tend to like to start with color, and I know that right now you have purple already incorporated into your logo, and obviously we love purple because it's our brand color too. So with that, are there any specific colors that really stand out to you that you're like, I like these, and why do you like them?
I've always liked that darker purple and black. I think it matches perfectly together. I can wear anything with it. I think that's what drew me to that color in the first place.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. So from the point of view of a breeder who has been in for 5 to 10 years-ish, when they are looking at reptile brands in general, do you feel that there are any colors that you see a lot and you're like, oh, this is kind of like a trend in the reptile hobby? And are there any kind of colors where you're like, nobody really has this and this stands out?
I think that I see a lot of red. I think that's popular in everything, cars, everything. A lot of vibrant reds. I see a lot of really, really bright colors.
Okay.
You don't really see too many dark colors.
Okay. So with that, do you want the primary color to be black, or do you want the primary color to be purple?
I want the primary color to be purple with black accents.
Okay. Because I think that's awesome. So with that, and again, it all depends on like what David's going with. I have noticed just in like other brands, other things, that at least on social media. So social media, you get the little like circular icon that's really teeny tiny. That oftentimes the primary color that works really well goes as the background, and that the secondary color is like the design of the logo, because the background takes up more space on a like mobile device or anything like that than the logo, because the logo is inside that kind of placeholder, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
So in this specific situation, and it really depends on contrast, and we'll see how all it looks once it's designed, but it might be a situation where purple and black are too close. And if we do like a black background with purple, or purple background on black, or with black, we might not be able to tell what's going on because they might blend too much together, but we can handle that when we get up to it.
I see what you're saying. It's going to just look like one solid color and it won't pop.
Yeah. 100%. So with this, the next kind of direction that I want to talk about is like content, because realistically, there's lots of different ways that people can market their brand. But in the reptile hobby, I feel like that creating social media content is the main way that people market themselves. You can always buy paid ads. You can always go in person to shows, but most people are doing it online through social media. So with this, are there any platforms that you're like, I'm really comfortable on this one? Or are there any platforms that you're like, I'm not really comfortable at this, but I think I need to do this?
But yeah, for sure. I'm pretty comfortable on Instagram. I used to be pretty comfortable on YouTube, but I think I've kind of lost it. I don't know if it's the passion or if it's the content. I just don't have really anything to post on YouTube, because it's so different than Instagram. I can record a video for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then we're good on Instagram. YouTube, I got to record it, edit it, make it look nice, add the special effects and stuff. And
yeah, no, I completely get that. Mike, I know that you do a lot of YouTube stuff too, but you do more live stuff where we do like edited things. Do you have any advice on like the live aspect of it, on how it can relate to these kind of investment tier breeders that have been in for 5 years?
Yeah, I would say in terms of how it actually relates to these investment tier breeders and live content, for me, and I'll kind of like rely on my own story here. So for me, one of the major ways that we got our name out there was by doing our podcast, right? And so we initially started just by inviting folks that we knew personally or had some sort of connection with, things of that nature, inviting them to be on the podcast and talking with them. And really that kind of served like a few purposes. A, we learned more about the industry. B, it was a way for us to get our name out there more. And so more and more people start recognizing us, recognizing our brand. It was an opportunity for us to communicate things about our brand while we were talking to the various folks that came on our podcast, whether that's communicating it to the person who's being interviewed or communicating it to the listeners. And so that was an opportunity to kind of share who we were as well. And so kind of all of that stuff really just started adding up for us. And then more and more people start recognizing who we were and recognizing our brand. And so it was a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone, because we were, especially then, we were relatively new to the industry. I mean, we started in 2020. And so out of the gate, no one knew who we were. But as we started doing the podcast more and more and being consistent with it, then more and more people started knowing who we were. And then at the same time, we were also learning a ton as well and developing some good friendships and relationships along the way.
Okay.
No, that's awesome, man. So the reason why I say that is I do feel like live shows are a good way to start on YouTube without having to like deal with all the editing stuff. That doesn't mean live shows are easy, because I mean, like, you guys are dedicated every single like week. You guys are there like consistently, but I do feel like that it is a little bit lower barrier of entry in terms of like just producing content, but it's a higher commitment because you got to be there every single week doing it. Yeah. Do you feel that a live show is something that you'd be interested in, or is that you're like, I don't really like the live shows, I don't really watch them? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I watch a few different live shows, and I definitely think that I could do it. I just don't know if I have the time. I have 2 young children, wife, 9 to 5 now. Once we're able to, do this full time, I think that we will have time. And I think that we could do something like that for sure. Yeah. I definitely think I could do it. Mm-hmm.
No, that's awesome. No, I completely get that. So with the time constraint, at least right now in mind, I feel that Instagram is an amazing platform to get a brand out there. They're not quite as loyal of an audience as YouTube is, but you get to reach so many more people than YouTube does. YouTube's a bit of a grind. So on Instagram, is there anything that you've currently done that you're like, oh, I had a lot of success with this?
For the main success that we've had on YouTube is just posting every single day and with quality content, like using our smartphones and then editing. The longer it takes us to make it, usually the better it turns out. You got to put the effort in making the videos. And then, like I said, it's only 20 seconds, 30-second videos. So we can knock out 10 of them and then have something to post for 10 days.
Yeah, get it, man. So with this, if we're talking about Instagram as content and making like high quality content, so there's like production quality, which is one topic that we can talk about in a second, because I do think that's going to be super important for the segment that you're targeting on these investment breeders that have been in for 5 years. But I tend to think of content as a way as I'm making it, as I'm playing it out, is if somebody were to watch this, how would it provide them value? And maybe the value is it teaches them something. Maybe the value is it makes them laugh. Maybe the value is that they think it's absolutely beautiful and they're like, wow, that's how good that combo looks that they didn't know before. So with that, is there any topic that you feel could benefit these investment tier breeders that you are pretty versed in, that you're like, I could actually teach people about this? Or is there any topic or type of thing where you're like, I'm pretty funny dude, I could make some comedy style things? Like anything like that, any avenue that you feel like stands out to you to provide value?
I think I could definitely do the comedy side of it. I like to make jokes. I like to do funny videos. I do a few funny videos every now and then on my Instagram channel. And I definitely think I could do that. Yeah.
Okay. I think that is a perfect avenue on this. So if you are trying to combine like funny videos with snakes on Instagram, at least initially, with your target audience being investment style breeders, do you feel that there are any kind of like takes, any topics that you're like, these are the types of things that are going to be relatable to these investment breeders, whether it is like, but could be funny. And I'm not saying we have to go through a big old list right now, but that's like the type of content that we'll want to make for this. Right.
I know I watch a lot of the older breeders. I'm really cool with KG. I watch Billy from Mutation Creation. I watch all these guys, and I get funny things to make from them. So like they'll say, oh, a lot of people don't like pastel, or a lot of people blah blah blah. So I'll make memes and stuff about pastel being great, or people not liking pastel. I made one. I got like 400,000, like 500,000 views on Instagram. I don't think they understood, like the people who were commenting on it, I don't think they understood the video, but it blew up.
Get it. Yeah. I do think, as you were talking about like KG or Billy, a aspect of branding. So there is like your brand value, and this is like how recognizable it is, how trusted it is. And then one aspect of brand that all of us have dealt with is the idea of like prestige. So the more prestigious a brand is, the more likely people are willing to pay a premium and choose that brand when they are spending a lot of money, because they want to buy the best, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
And if we are thinking about, we'll use like phones, all right? So, or our computers. I have an iPhone right here. I think it's pretty common. A lot of people have iPhones. But Android people will tell you all day long that you get, because it's true, a literal better phone, a stronger, more powerful device for a cheaper price than iPhone. You're paying the Apple tax, which is true, but that's because Apple's brand has higher prestige than Android does. That's also why you'll get people who make fun of the one Android person in a group chat and they turn everybody's text green. Yeah. But with this, a way that you can establish prestige as a new brand is if you can get the brands or the people, the influencers within a given space to essentially interact with you, engage with you, collaborate with you. A little bit of their prestige, a little bit of their clout is going to rub off, because what happens is that the audience starts associating is like, well, if KG messes with Nate and Billy does, like Bill or Nate's probably a pretty good guy. I should probably check him out and see what's going on. So the reason why I say this is if you can leverage relationships that you have initially, it is going to be super, super beneficial to establishing a strong brand that is viewed positively, rather than just people being like, oh, who's this random guy? I've never heard of him before. Definitely. So I think that stuff like that, those kind of collaborations are super great. And given the comedy angle that we already talked about, if, let's say, you were watching a Billy live and he says something that you're like, oh, that'd be perfect. If I could have just been there in person, I could have roasted Billy in a good-natured way. And if you snip it and then you turn it into your reaction to it, like Billy says this thing, and then you are reacting to it funny? I don't know what the right word is that. It is very likely that people who watch Billy will think it's funny too, and they will associate you with Billy. And if Billy's like, oh, that was pretty good, that was a pretty clever joke that you made there, and you keep doing that, you are not only promoting yourself, you're promoting these other brands, and you are tying some of the prestige of their brands to you. By you being able to give interesting, funny, insightful takes on other stuff that people are doing. And that's also not something that at least I have seen in the reptile hobby at all, but you see these idea of reaction stuff all the time in other niches. So they are popular.
Definitely.
So Stephen actually touched on a lot of the social media stuff that I was going to tap into. Obviously, he did it a lot more eloquently than I. I do want to tap into the YouTube piece a little bit and kind of see, like, in terms of like bandwidth and what type of live show you would really be interested in, and how can you make that work? Because I know you mentioned before in a different conversation that is something that you were really interested in. And granted, I am like super biased because that's kind of like my niche and that's kind of like my space. And so I do encourage people to do it because there are some benefits. And even kind of touching on what Steven said, even when you have people coming in, like you have the Billies, you have the Ozzies, you have the Justins and folks like that coming in on your show, a little bit of that does rub off. And so it's a great way to gain additional visibility for your brand. And so I would personally encourage you to pursue that if that's something that you truly want to do and you feel like you can dedicate some time to it. It doesn't have to be an every week show. It can be something like every other week or whatever sort of cadence you want to do. But I would encourage you, if that's something that you're passionate about, I would definitely go down that path.
Definitely. I have spoke with a buddy of mine who is active duty right now. We're thinking about doing something. I'm just looking for the time. That's literally it. So
I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, the whole point of doing this show that we're doing right now for me was I wanted to do something, but I couldn't get on the grind. I couldn't get on the YouTube grind. And so my time is very limited. So we chose to do once a month. And it might actually be once every 5 or 6 weeks sometimes, and it might be every 3 weeks. But I think it's that cadence, that's the treadmill, that ends up burning a lot of people out from doing social media. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I completely agree.
So in terms of your target market and wanting to target like those investment breeders and kind of the things that they would be looking for, obviously high-end stuff. You mentioned that you'd start picking up some high-end stuff. It's just not breeding yet. Kind of what's your thought process and your plan to kind of like get into that market, kind of considering all the factors, whether that's the odds, that's the what you'll have available for people, what they're looking for, where the market's going. It can kind of be going one way at one point, and then it kind of like shifts to something else. So what are your thoughts about how you plan out that process?
So we have a system right now where this year we're pretty much holding back all of our good females. We're probably selling 20% of what we're producing because we're making some crazy stuff right now. And we just don't think the market is where it needs to be right now to even sell some of the stuff. Like it's worth more, to us than it is, in the market. So our plan is 2026. Hopefully we're thinking that the market's going to be way better in 2026, and these babies now will be producing by then. So that's going to be our kind of breakout year. We're thinking 2026. That's our plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that take 100%. That's really kind of what we've noted that's going to be a good turnaround time for the market, is what we're hoping, kind of based on what we're seeing kind of in the big picture with the overall economy, things of that nature. Because as you know, there's a number of factors that kind of like play into like this whole business of snakes that we're in. And so I do think that's a good plan. So definitely kudos to you for kind of even thinking that far and thinking about what makes sense. Are you kind of marketing the projects that you're in to your target market currently? Like, are you posting those babies and posting those projects that you're working with, so people know, hey, the Real McCoy Exotics, they're working some really nice projects. They're working some of the same projects that we're in and things of that nature?
Absolutely. We've been doing a lot of posting, actually getting a lot of feedback from our posts, a lot of our posts, which is really nice. We're doing a lot of lace stuff, a lot of triple recessive stuff. And then we're getting a lot of new followers, a lot of, love and support from a lot of people. So we're really happy.
Also, you're really killing it in terms of your clutch count, right? I mean, you did 3 clutches a couple years ago, then 9 last year, and this year doing upwards of 20, right?
That's the plan. We're 9 down, and we got some few more ovulated, and so we're looking at close to 20 this year. So slowly ramping up.
Get it, man. Get it. That's awesome. Also, real quick, just because David is killing it over here on this design.
Yeah, I keep glancing over.
Yeah, no, I want to do a little bit of commentary, and I'm sorry, David, you can tell me to shut up at any point. So I think that this is really, really neat. I think it's really cool because you get the like snakes from the beard in order to like signal like what industry you're in. But I actually think that the most distinctive element on it is the glasses. And I think that that could be a really cool thing on YouTube or Instagram, where if you got a pair of, even if they were like fake, but like circular glasses like that, so you're just, it would be a distinctive look that when you show up on those, you're also hitting your logo every time. Like, again, I just think it was neat. So I
Those
apologize.
glasses are dope.
Yeah. Oh, no,
And those are the kind of glasses that Elijah wore, that he had big circular glasses. So I made sure that was one of the focal points in our logo originally.
So going off that, what type of podcast would you be interested in doing? Like, what do you foresee as kind of the format of the podcast?
So when we discussed doing a podcast, it was like more of interviewing different military members that either keep snakes or breed snakes, or if they get retired military, just balancing the military life with breeding ball pythons or breeding any kind of reptiles, or even just keeping reptiles. So that's what we were kind of aiming towards. We'll have like some videos would be shouting out different breeders who maybe we looked up to or something like that, or that's kind of the basis we were going for, like more of like an interview style, bringing guests on, having a topic, things like that.
Yes, I think that's an interesting spin that you put on that, like focusing on the breeders in the community that have military service. There's, as you know, there's several interview format podcasts out there. And so you kind of got to find like that thing that makes sure it's different than the rest in order for you to stand out. And so kind of approaching it from that perspective, focusing on breeders or reptile folks within the community that have a military background. That's an interesting spin, and that's something that's going to make you stand out. And thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, no problem.
In a perfect world, kind of the sum of all things combined, like what's the most that you could dedicate to doing that show? Like, is it like a bi-weekly type thing? Is it a monthly type thing? And then also, do you have a preference for the format? Would you rather it be live, or would you rather do something pre-recorded? So at the very least, at least you have some flexibility with when you kind of have to have a butt in seat to do it. Because that's one of the drawbacks with live is you got to be there at a specific time each time if you're doing like a standing show. Whereas when it's pre-recorded, there's a little bit more flexibility there.
Right. So initially we were thinking bi-weekly, just because there's only so many military members. If we do every week, we're going to run through them in, the first 8 months, 9 months, which now thinking back, there is a lot more that we don't know. So I think that I would try to dedicate one day a week for a podcast like that. And I think that I would go full tilt. I think we would do live.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure like once you got out there, you start talking about like the mission of your podcast, what you're trying to do, and folks really start picking up on the format and your niche specifically, you're going to start getting recommendations. They're going to say, hey, I know such and such, they were in the Army. I know so-and-so, they were in the Air Force, and this, that, and the third. And so you're going to have all kinds of recommendations. People are going to start hitting you up, and it's going to be a really cool thing if it's something you decide to jump into.
Absolutely. We're real excited about that.
And then it's a way to, again, really expand your network, kind of get your name out there more and more. And given like how unique that is, it's going to spread quickly because it's going to be something different to talk about.
Exactly. And then we're thinking on the other end of that is encouraging more military members to get into the hobby, or or if a military member says, I don't know if I can do it, I have this and this and this, or if we interview someone who is in the same situation, it'd be like, oh, okay, it is possible. I think we could do it,
And Mike, how does the strategy of Instagram Reels mix with the YouTube strategy of podcasts? What's the overlap there, and how can they complement one another?
Yeah, so they go together well in some sense. To Stephen's point earlier, your YouTube kind of audience I do feel like your YouTube audience is like a lot more loyal. They're going to follow like all the things you do. Like a lot of the same people are going to come back time after time after time after time after time again. And so that's very valuable in kind of building like that core audience. But Instagram is kind of more so of like a discovery platform in some ways. Obviously, there's going to be people that follow you and like all your posts or engage with your posts and things of that nature. So you are going to have some overlap in terms of traffic, but Instagram, in my opinion, is a really good way to get discovered, right? Because there's always people who follow us on Instagram that we don't know yet or we haven't heard of yet. And so they follow you. Usually when someone follows you or you follow them, you start seeing their stuff a lot more than you would see maybe some people you've been following for a while or people that have been following you for a while. And so they start popping up into your feed. And so they're seeing your post. And if you're posting reels about what you do, whether that's some kind of funny reel to your point, or whether it's like clips from your shows, there's a lot of softwares out there that you can kind of like basically drop your link into the software. It's AI driven, and then it spits out clips that have subtitles or captions on it. You can add music, you can add other graphics, like you can pull that stuff into like a software like CapCut or some other similar software. And so you can kind of really tailor it to your style, whatever that style may be. I know me, like I really like to lean on hip hop a lot because that's part of who I am. Like I come from the hip hop generation. And so that's always going to be something that is associated heavily with my brand. And so you can post that stuff on Instagram, and it's a way to have additional content, right? Everything's content. And so there's nothing wrong with having additional content and then attracting new people to you. And so once they see, hey, the Real McCoy Exotics, they do a podcast too. Well, maybe that's an opportunity for them to hop over onto YouTube, or if they see you on YouTube via scrolling for something else reptile related, they've kind of already got like that knowledge. At the very least, I've seen them on Instagram. Let me check this out. And then you never know, that person or those people may become loyal followers of your podcast work. And so they definitely complement each other for sure.
I would just also say, don't discount people's attention spans on Instagram. A lot of people told me not to bother with Instagram because people don't have the attention span. But I've been doing 90-second reels, and they've gotten very popular and very shareable. And so I really think that Instagram, there's a lot of ways you could use Instagram that people aren't using.
What you're saying, the like lack of attention span, there's actually like studies that show that that's not true. It is, what happens is that we as consumers in like marketing space and like social media, we are bombarded with advertisement and content. And essentially what has happened is that every single person in a split second can identify whether or not the content has a chance to be valuable. And it's like listening to music. If you sit down and you start hearing somebody playing a piano, it takes you 3 seconds to know, do they actually know how to play piano, or are they a master? And social media is the same thing. And that what you're talking about, like the fact that people will watch 90-second Instagram clips, it's because as soon as it comes on, they're like, oh, this has high production quality. He seems engaging. This topic is clearly articulating why it might be interesting to me. And therefore they like will actually consume a long portion of it. Like if you think about how often people will literally binge watch a Netflix series days on end. Yeah. It's not about attention span. It's about quality.
To add on to what Steven just said, that's why like hooking people from the very beginning is so important. And so like within the first 1 to 2 to 3 seconds, you want to do something that's engaging, that's going to catch that person's attention and make them think, hey, I want to watch the rest of this. And so it's super important, like the way you start. It's one of those, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Well, people don't really give you that much of a chance if you can't hook them in from the very beginning. It's one of the things that I personally try to do like with my podcast reels, and sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not. It's still something that I'm learning, but definitely I recognize the value in having like something that's very engaging at the beginning, whether like a reel is starting with like a question, or someone has like this really clever anecdote, or they're just doing something that says, look at me, look at me. Because at the end of the day, a lot of what drives social media is that look at me, look at me. And so you want to do things that make people look at you so they continue to engage and really give you some really positive feedback to the algorithm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's one of my problems, not starting off with enough energy.
Yeah, 100%. And on catching people's interest. So this is a tactic you see it all the time in social media, and we use it. We use it. And this is why it's clickbait and all that stuff. But we are like evolutionary. It is evolutionary advantageous for people to notice danger. So if you have, imagine like a big sea of information around you, and there's pieces of information that's like, hey, something dangerous is here. Something dangerous is here. You are instantly getting clued into that as like a person. So this is why a lot of content that is like 7 dangers of starting a reptile business. The video we just posted today was like the exploitation of new reptile breeders.
Yeah, I saw
those
that.
things are really, really clickbaity, and they grab people's attention and they get them to stop scrolling. And if you can get them to stop scrolling for a second, and then you can convey in those first couple seconds that it's like, hey, this is valuable to you and here's why, that's how you can actually get them to watch your videos.
That's for YouTube titles.
YouTube, honestly, it's same thing for Instagram. Like if you can start off an Instagram reel where in the first seconds, it's like, if I were doing like an Instagram reel where I'm talking about it, and I'd be like, the biggest mistake that new breeders make is, if that's how I started it, any new breeder that's scrolling through, there's a very good chance that they will stop and be like, what is it? What is the new biggest mistake?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been useful for me is to focus on content that I think someone would agree with so hard that they'd want to share it. Mm-hmm. And so it really helps you punch above your weight if people are sharing your content. And the fact that there's different levels that I'll watch it, that I'll enjoy it, that I'll like it, that I'll add my voice to it, and that I'll share it. On Instagram, you want to be finding ways to touch all those different things to increase your engagement.
And I think it goes without saying too, is you should always be yourself, like, and whatever that self is, right? And part of being yourself is really having like honest opinions, honest feedback. You're not gonna, there's no way in the world that everyone's gonna agree with everything you say, but don't be hesitant to put your true thoughts out there. Because that, like I said, at the end of the day, everyone's not going to agree with you. That's just not how the world works. And if you're hesitant to put out like what you really think, what you really mean, then that's going to hamstring you in so many ways. It's going to hamstring your creativity. You're going to sound just like somebody else. And so it's going to kind of like cut you at the root in terms of like just having that unique thing about you, that unique thing about the Real McCoy Exotics that makes you, that makes the Real McCoy Exotics the Real McCoy Exotics. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be the real McCoy.
Right. Absolutely. I think I had that problem in the past. I used to try to be like everyone else, but I definitely feel you on that one.
Stephen, any final thoughts to share? Any overall final thoughts for Nate?
One other thing that I wanted to talk about was like, how do you plan to sell the animals? Because there are local shows, there's national level shows, there's MorphMarket, there's Facebook groups, there's social media, there's so many different avenues. And I feel like that the avenues require different investments, and they also require different skills. Selling on MorphMarket is completely different than selling at a local show. But if you're targeting these investment type breeders, where are they going to be at, and what are you best suited for?
That's a great question. Because at this point in time, we haven't really produced enough to go to any shows. We haven't vended any shows yet, but we're thinking that this year is going to be our first year that we're going to actually start vending local shows. The ultimate goal is to hit all of the national shows, as well as MorphMarket, as well as social media, and those will be our three ways of selling our snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Based on our research, we've found that you basically have to be at the shows. They have to those longtime breeders. They need to see the snakes. A picture just doesn't do it for most of them. They want to hold them, and they're more likely to purchase a high-end snake if they can actually see it. They can see the genetics in it. They can see the quality of it. So we're going to definitely have to do shows.
For me personally, I feel like that I am more likely to purchase a higher end animal if it fits into my projects and it's something I want from a breeder I don't know if they're in person and I can see the animals and I can see their setup. It's like if I can get a vibe from them in person, I'm more willing to trust them. I think that in general, though, I actually don't buy like most of the stuff that we buy like at this point, because we are realistically we are your target audience. We're like got in like right before COVID, right at the very beginning of COVID, and are like buying those kind of investment level animals.
Right.
I almost always have like we have super specific projects, so I know the people who are working those projects, and I am very active in like the Instagram group chats that are related to that, or I like maintain a relationship with the people who work the projects that I am in. And a lot of times I know what they're having, because I'll be like, I know Brock is going to be hatching out a sunset puzzle clutch or something like that. Like, hey man, as soon as you get some babies, if you get a male, let me, like that kind of thing. And I think that networking aspect is super important for those really high end sales. Like,
Definitely. I see what you're saying.
I love that. That it's a lot of the best animals are pre-sold, aren't they? Before they even have a chance to get on MorphMarket, or before they get taken to a show.
Before that egg is even cut, a lot of the times.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, let's check in with Dave Space Laser here and talk about this logo. Dave, talk us through what you've done here. It looks amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, first of all, the old one looks pretty great already. So I like a lot about what you have going on here. I love the hat. I love the glasses. I love the snake beard. So really all I needed to focus on with all of that to work with was, excuse me, was just making it symmetrical, a little iconic, a little more clear and readable. Bring the type into it. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, though.
I think you hit it right on the head. I really like it. I think that it's way more professional now. I could see this on like a letterhead type of a vibe here. I could see these on shirts. I already have my shirt guide ready, so I think I like it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Well, I think you've captured the vibe of the original, and obviously you'll always have the original. But one of the things we did discuss in pre-production, just for our audience to know, is that we did want to make a change from TRM Exotics to the Real McCoy Exotics in the verbiage. And so that's one of the reasons why the text is doing this versus the old logo.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions in the past. What does TRM stand for? So now it's going to be out right there in the open. You can see it.
Awesome. I think that's going to be a very merch-friendly design.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When you print shirts, I'll buy one.
I'll send you one. You don't have to buy it.
Awesome.
Mike, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, this has been great. It's been nice learning about you. Any questions that you have, feel free to hit me up. I'll give you my number after the show. That way you've got that. Like I say, any questions you have, feel free to bounce them off. I won't like sell myself as a complete subject matter expert, but we've been doing like the YouTube grind and all that kind of stuff for a few years now, and we've been breeding for a few years now. And so definitely any information that I have, certainly willing to share that. If I don't know the answer, I'll keep it real with you and let you know I don't know the answer. But I bet I know someone who does have the answer, so happy to pass that along with you. I think your logo is super nice, so good job, Dave. Thank you, Craig, for putting this together. This is amazing, and we're looking forward to seeing your continuous growth over the next several years.
Thank you so much, Mike. And Nate, congrats again. We really appreciate you doing this. I look forward to seeing you as a guest on more podcasts, and I hope that a lot of people will watch this and recognize you and start to have you on their podcast, and we'll learn more about your origin story and learn more about where you're going, learn more about your animals. Can't wait to see what you do with this, all this info. Thanks again to Stephen Capps from Leviathan Snakes. Thank you to Mike Johnson from Herp Collectors. I do want to say getting on one of these guys' Patreons would be a great idea, or both of their Patreons would be a great idea. You get a lot more of this mentoring. And for all of you that are watching, this is the kind of wisdom and knowledge dumps you can get by joining some of these Patreons. And so we are always encouraging people to join Patreons. I do want to give one shout out to USARK. I want to make sure that everyone that's watching this is supporting USARK. Come in at a bronze level. Come in at a level you can afford. For those of you that are taking a more serious approach to the industry and you're buying more expensive animals, I want to challenge you to do the next snake challenge. And that is where you will take the average value of the snakes that you're buying and take that chunk and donate that snake by donating that amount of money to USARK. It's something we've done here. It's something we've done for the past 3 years. And I really encourage you all to do it. It's a great feeling to be a core partner with what they're doing. And a lot of people that are looking to get involved in USARK are just needing an idea or a way to get involved more. And so I suggest the next snake challenge for you.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the logo. We're going to be using it. You're going to see it everywhere. Thank you for the support for the podcast. I'm going to talk to my guy, and we're going to figure some things out. And last but not least, thank you so much for bringing me on. You guys are the best.
It's been a great show, and we really appreciate you. Thanks very much, Nate McCoy from the Real McCoy Exotics. We'll see you next time on the next edition of the Reptile Workshop.